you ready to take the next step and open up a physical location to host your business in Edmonton?
We're here with Giordano Morgulis, Vice President of 76 Group, a commercial and real estate and development company. So hopefully after listening to this podcast, you'll get a little better footing of figuring out what to do if you are looking to open up your own space in Edmonton. Please click and subscribe, hang out with us, and listen in on this podcast. My name is Galee. I am the owner of Pampas Gal.
My name is Orlandice. I'm owner of Interiors on Point, co-owner of Top Contracting. We are here with Gio. Thank you, Gio, for joining us onto the podcast. We are excited to know more into commercial real estate and leasing, and as well as your new podcast that is coming soon. So thank you for coming.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to get a little bit more into, the background of who you are and how you got started with commercial real estate. So do you mind telling a little bit about how you got into this industry?
Yeah, not a problem. It's actually quite a simple kind of story. So go back 30 years. So my father actually, he started at Royal Park Realty, and he has about 30 years of experience. He was in architecture before. And then he eventually became a partner of Royal Park, and they do commercial leasing all over the city. And then he eventually started 76 Group, which is our development firm. We also do property management, we do leasing, and we're the landlords of each property that we develop. So eventually, just me growing up with him, I kind of wanted to follow his footsteps. So I went to McEwen. First thought I was going to be an accountant, realized I did not want to do that at all. Then I kind of got the niche for real estate, and so eventually once I was done at McEwen, I kind of joined the office, and I've been there ever since, and I've loved it.
That's awesome. Yeah. And just to give a little bit of background, so 76 Group owns Manchester Square. Yep. What are some of the other buildings that our audience might know?
Yeah, so obviously Manchester Square is our biggest one in the public right now.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of goes there and takes their Instagram pictures, which
it's
is
so
great.
Beautiful. It reminds me of Europe. The architecture
is
beautiful.
Yeah, that was the idea. So we took a couple different places around the world that we wanted to kind of really showcase. Obviously Amsterdam's a big part of that.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much what the building looks like. It looks like you're walking the streets of Amsterdam. The towers are modeled after Manchester, a couple of the balconies or Paris and Rome. But we called it Manchester Square because in the very beginning, when we were looking at Amsterdam architecture, the first thing that popped into people's eyes was the red light district, and so we didn't want any association with that. So we wanted to switch it up. So that's why we called it Manchester Square, and that's the one that is in the public's eye more than any of the others for sure.
Yeah.
But it's also great because it gives all the tenants there a ton of marketing of everyone going there, just enjoying the landscape, enjoying the atmosphere and the vibe that's created. Because we wanted to create something different. We didn't want to create just another square building where I can easily put a Shell gas station on the lot and Tim Hortons in it. Nothing wrong with the companies. It's just not what we want to do, right?
Yeah.
A couple of other properties are very close within the area. So Holland Plaza's a very good one of ours, where there's a couple of local businesses that we have in there as well. And that's actually where our office is located. We also have Columbia Plaza, where businesses like Art of Cake are there, which is just north of the Brewery District, so it's actually very, very close. We kind of like keeping in the 124th Street and the Oliver Square area, which is kind of a really up-and-coming area because downtown is just pushing north like crazy right now.
Yeah.
I've been there in the summer, and it has that really cool vibe and markets. Yeah, Galee was doing a few markets there. Yeah. I really like the vibe in Manchester Square, and it just, especially just go down there and I brought my kids down there. Yeah.
Well, we love that. I mean, the whole idea was to create a community and a destination within Edmonton, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a ton of developers who do a fantastic job in creating cool little pockets. We just need more of it. So when we get little opportunities to do stuff like that, that's what we really want to capitalize on, and not just do something else that just looks like the next building that's next door.
I agree.
Right? So we want everything to stand out. Might not be for everyone. That's totally okay.
Yeah.
But I think 99% of the people are in love with it now, which is awesome. But that's the whole atmosphere of Europe as well. We'll never be able to replicate it at all. We'll be able to try our best, but there's a reason why we always travel halfway around the world to go experience the culture over there, right?
And that's where the influence and it gets inspired here. So bringing that influence here.
Yeah.
For the new business owner, what is the trending landscape you currently see with commercial real estate and in the leasing market?
It's a great question because it's changed drastically after COVID. COVID really kind of put a different eye on what businesses are looking for. Probably I'd say in 2019, the average space that people were looking at was about 3,000 to 5,000 square feet, and everyone was kind of just popping up spaces left, right, and center. It was nuts. And then obviously COVID kind of made everyone realize and humbled a lot of people to say, okay, well, maybe I don't need this, maybe I don't need that.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted to lower overhead. So the trend that we're seeing right now is I see a lot of people that want 1,000 to 1,500 square feet. So the smaller space, they really utilize every corner of square feet of their space now.
Yeah.
But they don't mind what they're paying per square foot. So it's not even about the end overhead now, it's about the size of the space, because obviously if you lower your space size, you're lowering your overhead.
Yeah.
But people are okay paying more per square foot and it being a nicer area and a nicer property, nicer building, than they are getting a cheaper space, let's say, but it's also 3 times the size. Right? So they're trying to lower their overhead but up the quality. And I'm seeing businesses pop up left, right, and center now. It's awesome to see. It's kind of the trend that we've noticed.
And are you seeing a trend in people sharing spaces and nooks and corners within the same
100%.
space?
Yeah. I see a lot of subleases now because people want to get one space, which is great, and then they want to sublease it, make a little bit of profit on top, which is totally fine. But I also see a lot of the co-sharing spaces popping up, which is great. You can get 20 people in one kind of space, one bigger space. It's all finished, it's all done, and then everyone has their own little pocket where they can utilize, it's a great business strategy for sure.
Yeah.
It works very well for like hair salons. You just kind of, if you want to have your own just 1 chair or 2 chairs, it's perfect. Yeah.
And usually who the main tenant who is leasing, they would be responsible for the sublease. So technically for you as a landlord, you wouldn't touch any of that.
Well, yes and no. It would definitely depend. So if I lease it to a business and their business is to have a bunch of different little spaces, then it's that business's responsibility. Now, if I were to take a space, renovate it, and say, okay, I'm going to put 20 different salons in here, 20 different chairs, and here we go, I'm responsible for each one of those people. Right? So it's a lot of management. It's nothing that someone should overlook because it's a lot to deal with. In a smaller space like that.
Yeah. That makes sense. My next question for you is for a new business owner who might be looking for a space in Edmonton to expand or to grow their business, what is the first step that they should be considering or taking before moving into that step?
It's a fantastic question, and I think it's a question that every business owner should ask themselves because it's really expedites time. And what I think a lot of people maybe overlook is how much time this process takes. To get a full brick and mortar location, no matter how small or big it is, it's a lot. So first thing I'd always recommend is know your budget very well. If you know your budget very well, then you're not kind of either aiming for the stars or aiming too low. You're kind of in your comfortable realm, which is where you should be. And in order to do that, you got to talk to whatever financial institution. You got to know your cash flow projections very well, because then you can know what you can afford. So I know a lot of people have a lot of fear of debt. A lot of people don't like loans. They don't like owing money, right? One of the biggest assets, I would say, in a business's life is utilizing debt. So you have to utilize debt to actually work for you as opposed to against you. The perfect example I always give to people is you get a credit card. Eventually, after a certain period of time, you pay off your credit card, all of a sudden you get an email from the bank. Oh, we'd like to give you more of a limit on your credit card. Everyone always accepts it. Why? Well, you're accepting more debt. The possibility of more debt is what you're accepting. But people want that, and the bank wants to give you that because the more debt that you have, that's the more a bank trusts you that you can pay your stuff off. So debt's actually a good thing if you can utilize it to work for you. But we've all kind of been taught through whether it's our school system or you know parents and whatnot, clean up your debt, which is not, I'm not going against that. But I'm saying if you do have debt, use it for you rather than a fear tactic almost, right? So that's one thing I would say is talk to a financial institution and say, okay, well, what can I loan out? What can I take out? because the last thing that you want, and unfortunately we've seen this in the market, is a lot of businesses that use their own capital. If that is all their capital to start up a company, very hard to succeed. Very, very hard to succeed. You need to utilize a loan or an operating line of credit is preferred. But having your own money and all of your own money into your business is very, very difficult because you're all in.
Yeah.
Which is fine to be all in.
Yeah.
But it's risky.
Yeah.
So I would suggest, utilizing a loan, utilizing some sort of line of credit to help you. It's okay paying that little bit of interest. It's totally fine. We all pay interest on everything that we do.
Yeah.
Right? Use someone else's money to make you money.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. Yeah. Whenever my credit card asks me, do you want to increase your, I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it.
Exactly. That's the point.
But I never use it, obviously, right? But I also know that, like, if you do pay it off and you have an increased, like, capacity, your credit score is supposed to be a little better that way too. I think that's what I've heard.
Yeah, I mean, that's its own tactic.
That's its own thing, but
for sure.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something that, like, I think does give a good analogy because people willingly accept that credit limit increase because they're like, well, I would just want to be able to spend more money if I need to. Right?
If I need to, yeah.
So that's one aspect. I would say, like, the next big aspect is being very, very understanding of how long the permit process takes, and which you can definitely speak to on that end.
Oh my gosh. The permit, and having your, I guess, ducks in a row, especially when it comes to when you are developing a space, you want to be able to have your contractor, your designer, I guess, drawings done, and being able to know, and then you submit for permits and have your develop, or like your contractor go in while it's being okayed by the permits. So then you're still hitting those timelines. Yeah, it's
tough. I mean, the timelines, I'd say, pretty much have tripled or even quadrupled from when they were before COVID, it's not helpful. We mainly deal with local businesses. We don't really deal with national companies. We're not into that sort of realm. I know there's more profit in stuff like that, but at the same sense, we'd rather local companies be in our building because that's what creates a destination. No one goes to a building because there's a Starbucks there. I love Starbucks. I go there. But what my point is, you're going to go there because you'll like that there's a local pretzel shop or a local baker or a local retailer. Like that's what I think a city thrives on. And that's what we love about it, right? So we really try hard to work with locals, and a lot of local business owners, unfortunately, get held up in that red tape process with the city. It's not a lot of fun, and there's not much you can really do except give them everything that you can as quick as you can, and you gotta be on them.
It could definitely delay up a project because then it'll keep a project at a standstill for a little bit, for weeks, even a month. Even longer. There's a current project that's going on right now that we have waited 8 months for a permit.
Wow.
Which, if you had to ask your audience questions about, okay, well, what do I need to know for a business? Well, if that happens, can you afford 8 months worth of capital? Of operating expenses, right?
Wow.
It's a lot to think about.
So that permits does throw a wrench in some cases, but make sure you have your drawings, your GC ready to go, all your finishings, fixtures, everything all ready to go. So when the permits are like, hey, you're ready, you could just take off like that.
Because you can't develop until you have a permit.
Yes and no. So and the city will tell you this. So there's two styles of permits for what we do. So because we're just mainly in commercial right now, we are getting into residential, which we'll get on in a little bit. But what we do is there's a development permit phase, which is a change of use. So if a coffee shop wants to come in, we'll change the use to a coffee shop. They'll go through that process. That's a quick process. That usually doesn't take longer than maybe a week at certain buildings. It depends on your zoning. So it's another thing I would say businesses should know is whatever zoning the building is, make sure they look into that because that has permitted and discretionary uses. Once you get through that phase, it's your building permit that takes a long time. There's some stuff you can do under a development permit, absolutely. 90% of what you can do is a building permit. So you need to make sure you get all of that stuff done, and sometimes we're seeing up to 3-month delays on stuff like that, which is not realistic to expect a local business to afford those operating expenses for that long. So we are working with the city to try to get them to look at it from a different perspective, because they're definitely preaching they want local businesses, right? and we want that too. But we need to put, you know, different glasses on for them, maybe, and we need to share their glasses to understand, you know, they go through a lot of stuff as well. So it's not just, you know, harping on them. There's others, they deal with a lot, but we just need to understand both perspectives.
And I feel a local business is what makes Edmonton the
heart of the city.
The heart,
100%. I mean, a great example, I know some other fans might not like it, but Calgary's a beautiful city. It's a gorgeous city, and they've really thrived on local businesses. The local nightlife and the local restaurant scene over there is unbelievable, right? And
it connects everybody because of those businesses.
Absolutely. And there's not competition, there's nothing like that. It's not that mentality. It's a mentality of like, oh, we're all just going to have like a beautiful area, and that's where we're all going to put our restaurants. It's awesome.
What are some questions for a new business owner to ask when they're looking at a commercial space?
It's a great question again. Lots of questions I would ask. I always tell everyone in our office that if we're touring people through a space and there is no questions, that's a concern. Because if you're going to be, you know, investing into a building, and if you're going to be investing into your business, you should have a bunch of questions of, you know, well, not only about the typical stuff that's on a brochure, whether it's market rates or whether it's lease rates, operating costs or terms. It's just what I would ask the developer, the landlord, what they envision for the property. It's a huge factor of it, because we really pride ourselves on not being the typical landlord where you hold your hand out and say, pay me rent. Right? We're there to help you through the process. We expect you to know the process, but we're here to help you and guide you through the process. So I would say get a good relationship with your landlord, because it's very, very important. Your usually terms are about 5 years. You're having a relationship with us for 5 years. Right? So if all of a sudden we change our you know, thought process of what we want for a property, it's great for you to know. Because if all of a sudden I'm just like, you know what, actually I'm going to turn this into a warehouse, and you're like, well, I'm a coffee shop. How does that make sense? Right? It doesn't make sense at all. So I would definitely have like those ideas, and there's no wrong answer. It's just what someone feels for the vibe and for their property. Another question I would ask is if they're looking to sell a property anytime soon, because, you know, you might have a relationship with someone, fantastic relationship. Selling a property, you don't know what the new relationship's going to be like, right? So I would say asking your landlord more questions about the developer, more questions about what they envision for the space. I would also ask questions about the city. So a great example going on right now is the Brewery District. The Brewery District came in, invested over $1 billion in making that crazy
it's
big
beautiful.
complex. It's beautiful. I think it's a great thing what they did for the city. The LRT is going on 104th, right in front. So for, let's say, you know, Starbucks or Nando's that's in there, it's going to affect their business, because it's going on the road, and I'm sure they're going to try to help as much as they can. It is going to cause an issue, right? So if you have one lane either side, or if you even have 2 lanes either side and a LRT train in the middle, and you're trying to turn left, you're waiting for a train, well, now you're backing up traffic. And now some people are just going to be like, well, I'm just not going to do it anymore, right? So I knew the Brewery District was aware of it. But I don't know if each tenant was aware of it. Right. I hope so. Because it's definitely going to cause some delays, especially when construction starts. Right. So
that's a really good point.
It's always really good to analyze the location and do a lot of your research, especially when it pertains to what business you want to put into a space and the location, the surrounding
100%,
locations.
100%, and that's why. Well, one of the reasons why where Manchester Square is located right now, why we bought the property. So we bought the property, and during our condition period, we found out that the city was putting the LRT on 104th, and they wanted to make 107th the main drag in and out of downtown, from communities like Westmount, Glenora, Crestwood, Valley View, great areas. Being on the main drag is exactly what you want. So it was great that we found that out, because it helps us, and it helps us sell it to potential tenants. Right. You're going to get more
increased
and more traffic.
Exactly. Yeah.
So at what point, as a landlord or a developer, is responsible to what stage developing a space for a potential business owner? For example, say a business owner comes to you and is like, I want to transfer this into a boutique. What stage do they take over and have to transform it to their business plan?
Great questions, honestly. Good.
Putting you on the spot.
This is perfect because the questions that you are asking are also questions that other potential business owners should ask, right? Yeah. Whether it's a landlord or a developer, their bank or whatever. What we provide on each one of our properties varies for each property, and it will vary for every developer for each property that they do. For example, right when COVID happened, we had a couple tenants. Luckily enough, we only had 2 tenants that actually had to go and close their doors during COVID, which was a great percentage. Unfortunately, it's still too many. Those are finished spaces, right? So in that sense, there was a physiotherapy clinic that came by, and that it worked perfect for what they needed.
Oh, nice.
But in the same sense, if a restaurant would have come by and to look at this certain space, it wouldn't have worked.
Right.
So in turnkey spaces, you're pretty much gearing it towards the use that it already was previously.
Okay.
To change it over again, it's already investment that's been invested into the building. That's totally up to each developer and each landlord and each tenant based on the deal that they do. Now, for example, Manchester Square, the spaces that we provide there are rough-in. So you got your rough-in plumbing, your rough-in mechanical, rough-in electrical. We provide it all drywalled and ready to go for your improvements as a tenant. Now, could I do that? Absolutely. Does the cost go up? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So our whole goal with it was, and it's very, very common, you kind of really do what you need to do to make the space usable, and the distribution part is up to a tenant. Because if I design a space, let's say as a doctor clinic or a dentist clinic, right? And all of a sudden a guy comes in or let's say a girl comes in like yourself and was just like, well, I want to do all my Pampas grass in here. Mm-hmm. Well, all of that money that we invested was pointless. Yeah. Right? Because you're going to change everything to how it accommodates you. Yeah. Right? So what we did is we said, and it's a common thing, is that a developer will say, okay, I'm going to do what I want to do on the outside. I'm going to make it look beautiful. I'm going to make it functional. I'm going to make it a destination so people want to lease here. Yeah. On the inside, that's on the tenant. Yeah. Because I don't know what you want your space to look like. I can't guess who's going to come in here while I'm doing this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Unless I have pre-leases done. So, for example, Arcadia Brewing, it's a nice little shout out for Darren right there. But he came in and he signed with us before COVID and stayed with us throughout COVID. So as we're building and constructing the space, he got to customize a bunch of stuff in there because we're building the construction. So no one else got that opportunity. Right. So it all depends on the timing as well. Right. But then if I were to design everything, that doesn't leave much room for you to do that. Right? So there's room for everyone to get involved on developments and to kind of utilize their own strengths, right? We have great strength with design, but we design buildings and we really, really take pride in stuff like that. And I want a tenant to feel like when they come in, this is their home. Yeah. I don't want them to feel like it's what we designed and what we want it to look like. Yeah. Right? There is that business plan for sure, but that's not our business plan. We want you to come in here and you walk in your space, you're like, I picked this and I did that, and that's how I wanted everything in my space. Yeah. You're spending a lot of money, it should feel like your second home. Yeah. I guess
another sub-question to that is, so let's say one of your older buildings, like a more of a heritage building, mm-hmm. it maybe needs to be updated. If a potential tenant is coming in and they see that like the floors maybe need some brushing up, or the walls need to be repainted, or maybe lighting needs to be fixed in order to update it for a tenant today, is that something that would be negotiated between the two, or is that something that typically you would kind of cover?
Well, that's the beauty of real estate. Everything's negotiable.
That's true.
Right? So there's not a single item that's not on the table. Yeah. Now, in that sense, older buildings definitely have like a lot of more issues that come up with them, right? At the same sense, they were never built like that. We don't build stuff like that anymore. Yeah. Right? I can probably tell you all of the buildings that are in the 60s and 70s will last longer than every new build that we see right now. Oh. Yeah. Without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah. First of all, concrete was the cheapest thing back then, so these things are like built like bunkers, right? Yeah. And right now, everything's very cost effective. So you'll see a lot of issues arising with a lot of buildings that have been built in the past 20 years. Yeah. And there's still buildings that are here for 60 years and they're still fine, right? Yeah. So those things will last a lot longer. Now, if a tenant comes in and just says, you know what, well, floors are popping up, or there's something going on with here, or there's an issue with the HVAC and stuff like that. That is all up to negotiation. Usually landlords or developers will say, this is the space as is, and that's why my rate is justified in what it is, right?
Makes sense.
So in the same sense, it needs to be a win-win for both parties. And you got to feel like both parties are happy, because like I just said previously, it's a relationship that you're going to have for quite a while.
It's like a marriage.
It absolutely is,
for
right?
5 years.
Sign the contract.
Half the time, I probably get sometimes some of my tenants say, I see you more than I see my wife or my husband. And I'm like, you know what, it's true though, because you come to work and you're at work for maybe 12, 16 hours sometimes, because this is everything. This is your business.
Yeah,
this
it's your baby.
This is your baby.
Yeah.
Right. So you're really dedicating a lot of your life to this, which is awesome to see, because you can't guess that passion is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And that's why I'd say a lot of people are successful, because of that passion. Right.
It's probably really nice to see when you put in those new business owners in these spaces and just see them flourish.
It's honestly, it's the greatest thing. It's absolutely the greatest thing, because we see everything. We see a bunch of people that got great partners in their business as startups, tons of financial backing. They don't got to worry. They're totally fine. It's still great to see them flourish though, because they do great quality product and they're getting the business. So that's great to see. And then you also got everyone on the complete opposite of the spectrum, like I just said previously, where I wouldn't recommend put every dime that they own into a space and then completely just be like, let's hope.
Yeah.
It's a lot of risk, but when it pays off, you will never see joy like that ever. And it's great to see. I can kind of speak a little bit on what we saw. So we just had Oktoberfest at Manchester on past Saturday. It was a fantastic turnout. We had a bunch of different, all of our tenants and a bunch of local people there, which is great. There's a pretzel shop that opened up there called Das Brezelhaus. Authentic German pretzels. He sold out of every product he had. He couldn't sell a toothpick if he wanted to because there was nothing left. So I was very happy to see lineups at the door. So it's fantastic to see that.
Yeah.
Right, because we take pride in what we do, and we want people to feel so accomplished when they're in a space and they kind of see the benefits coming to them.
Okay, so I do have one question that pertains to what we were just chatting about. So say a new potential business owner comes to you and be like, hey, I need, say, for example, I don't know why I'm doing a boutique. I think it's because I'm currently doing a boutique, but I want to open up a boutique. This is what I need. Do you have something for me? And this is my budget. Could you find that business owner a space for? Yeah,
I mean, it's a great opportunity, because if there's a space, like for example, we actually just did a deal for a liquor store. There was a liquor store that went under. Unfortunately, it had nothing to do with COVID or business. It had to do with his own personal health. So unfortunately, he had to call it quits. But there's an opportunity for another business to come in and say, okay, well, the liquor store's done. The improvements are done. All the renovations are done. That saves you anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000. That's a big chunk of change to be able to save yourself, and the business can just start operating, and there's already approved use, and you can start going tomorrow. Once you got your business license, you're up and running, you're already way ahead of the game. Yeah. Right? So your cash flow should already be like way, way up there. So there's tons of opportunities. Now, usually those opportunities don't come often. They came a lot during COVID, for sure. But now they're pretty much all spoken for. Because a turnkey space is kind of a dream if it works. You just kind of do a couple of renovations, maybe some paint, make it your own, and then you're good to go.
Yeah, that helps immensely on budget.
Oh yeah, because a lot of budgets are very, very thin right now, so it does help on a budget for sure.
I have a question about like turnkey opportunities.
Yep.
Where would someone look for turnkey opportunities? Like, is it as simple as just Googling like businesses that for sale, or is there a specific place to search for it?
There is. So a lot of the like kind of real estate community, realtors, landlords, developers, property managers, the way that they kind of do it is there's a website called LoopNet. Okay. So LoopNet is a place for commercial real estate, much like you would see realtor.ca for residential, right? So if you go on LoopNet, you can kind of search for the criteria that you want. We market on there all of our stuff.
Yeah.
So a lot of realtors will put what they have on there. Again, property managers and other developers will do the same thing.
Yeah.
So that way you can kind of just narrow down your criteria. If you want a turnkey space, you kind of just check a box. You want a turnkey space. It's a good platform. It's kind of works alongside CoStar, which is another one that I don't know if some people have heard of, but that's what we find a lot of people are using now. So a lot of people are using that as opposed to realtors now. Either one is good to use. Realtors have an immense amount of knowledge that necessarily not a certain tenant might have going into real estate, right? So it's good to use one of the two for sure, or a combination of both.
Yeah.
But I'm finding a lot more people now are not going through the realtor route; they're going through the LoopNet route. So I would just obviously advise them that just educate yourself a lot on real estate before you just immediately just go and dive down that. So it is worth a call to a realtor, or if you have a relationship with other developers or a landlord, just to kind of educate yourself.
What are the pros and cons between having a realtor be your middleman between that conversation?
Ooh, you put me on the spot on that one. There's big pros and big cons, and it all depends on the realtor. We've worked with fantastic realtors, which we will always continue to work with. And again, we've worked with some awful realtors, which we'll never work with again.
Yeah.
It really depends on the work ethic and the time that's put in to educate. And that's why I just kept saying education, because at the end of the day, a landlord is paying that commission fee. And the fees are not small. The fees are significant. But that's okay, as long as they're bringing a successful tenant to me that can survive, and then that way they're getting the proper education to go and make a deal done. Now, a great realtor will know how to pivot between looking at a landlord's perspective and looking at a tenant's perspective. Now, they represent the tenant, right? I represent us, so they need to have the tenant's interests at heart. That is understandable. What doesn't end up working is when it's a constant fight over more and more and more. What more and more can the landlord do? Right. And vice versa. A landlord can't be asking a tenant to just do everything. Expect them to do everything, and just say, no, I just want my rent. Like, if you don't like it, you can leave. It's a lose-lose scenario, right? So you need to be able to meet with people that can give a little and take a little. And as long as you find a good middle ground, you're great. Now, I know a ton of people are getting into real estate right now. Pretty much everyone is becoming a realtor now, which is not a bad thing at all. It's a good business to be in. But the way to separate yourself is to really put in that work ahead of time, and to really just try to get a deal done as best as possible. It is better to have one deal that is done that makes everyone happy, because if you have one deal that's done that really doesn't make anyone happy, there's not really return business there. So better than looking at it as just a one-time payment or a one-time transaction. It's the worst way to look at it. And sure, you'll make a little bit of cash, but you won't make cash again, not from those parties, right? So having a great relationship is fantastic. So we have probably on a short list of about 5 realtors that, like, the second that we do developments, we all let them know ahead of time, because they're great at working with us. They go out and they find tenants, and they represent the tenant. They don't represent us. We don't do exclusive listings on our properties. But it doesn't matter, because I'm happy to pay them a full fee regardless, as if they were representing us. Right? So go out, find some people for us, and then they come back and they just get a deal done, and we'll continue to use them for the next 10, 20, 30 years. Right? So it's much better to have good transactions, but multiple of them, as opposed to try to just get greedy on one, and then you're not really going to get another.
So I guess what you're saying is, like, from so a landlord can hire a realtor, but also a tenant could hire a realtor, and then whoever is hiring the realtor, they would be paying the fee to the realtor?
No, so landlord always pays the fee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's always a cost to the landlord. So that's why I say when a realtor brings a tenant, or tenant comes with a realtor, whatever scenario, eventually meet with me, it's totally fine. I don't mind. I work with realtors all the time. It's irrelevant to me. All we want is a tenant to occupy a space, and we want a good tenant to occupy a space. We don't want someone that's just bringing a tenant to us that they haven't looked at their financials, they haven't looked at their business plan. There's no education on, like, okay, well, what budgets are we looking at? We're just going to bring them to a space and see if they can afford it.
Yeah.
That's not appropriate, because how do I know that they'll last 5 years minimum?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I want them to last 50 years.
Yeah.
Right? But some of them will go out of business in 2 years.
Yeah.
Well, realtor already got paid on that deal.
Yeah.
No way I'm calling that realtor back up and saying, can I have, 3 years worth of the commission back? It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Right? But things like that will happen that are out of a realtor's control and a landlord's control. But the reason I bring that up is because at the end of the day, we are paying that fee. So help us make a deal. Don't work against us. We're all here to achieve the same thing. We're here to achieve a tenant into a space, right? So let's make sure that we're all on the same team here, as opposed to just butting heads.
Yeah.
Because the last thing that I want is I want a tenant to feel it's what they want versus what we want, and we're just bashing all the time, right? It needs to be a cohesive team effort, because the second that you sign on the formal lease agreement, our 5 years starts.
Yeah.
And the realtor's gone.
Yeah.
The realtor's gone and doing their next deals, which is fine.
Yeah.
But we need to always start things off on the right foot.
Yeah.
Teamwork.
Exactly. It's huge.
So what are some of the new developments coming up with 76 Group?
We have a couple. So we have a couple cool things coming up. We've tied up a couple properties here in the city. Can't say exactly where they are just yet. But there is one property that is right downtown here in a very prime location. So we're really, really excited about that one. And then we're also tying up a property a little bit more on the west side over there, kind of close to where the TELUS World of Science is.
That's cool.
Yeah. We're looking at doing stuff, and again, we're gonna put our spin on stuff. We don't like keeping things just kind of the way that they are and just kind of let it be. We love the idea of just making it very aesthetically pleasing, very artistic.
Yeah.
And we want to build a brand behind 76, right? Like that's our whole goal. Holland Plaza did that to an extent, and obviously Manchester really just blew it all up, right? Because that's something that's very, very different, very unique. So we want to continue with our whole local trend, and we want to continue with making stuff very, very pleasing to the eyes and very cool and very something that you'll turn a corner and be like, wow, like that's a 7-6 development, right?
Yeah.
That's our whole goal. So we've got a couple properties here that we're excited for, a couple of developments that we're going to do, and then we're also getting into the residential division. So I kind of spoke on this earlier. So my father is obviously our CEO. He is running our Kelowna operations. I run our Edmonton operations over here. So he's starting on the residential side over there, and then we're eventually going to bring the residential side here, because again, same thing when it goes with homes, right? We want to make someone feel like you come into your home, not your home that looks identical to the person to the left of you and to the right of you, right? So it's got to have architecture, which is what a couple companies, one company that I do love is Cantiro. Cantiro used to be Dolce Vita. It's the Beaverbrook group of companies. George Cantilini's done a great job. He does commercial stuff with West Block Honora. He does all this stuff with Cantiro, and he puts architecture on his properties, which is great. So we definitely want to do architecture on all of our stuff, commercially and residentially.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yes. Especially, it's, when you design for a personal space for residential, you're designing for the client personally. And when you design for a commercial, you're designing for the customer experience. So, but you still, like, going down to Glenora or River Valley or Lorelei Heights, like, there's not one house that is the same. It's very, and it just walking down, it just adds character to the mature areas.
Absolutely. It totally does. And that's what creates those cool neighborhood areas, and that's why they're so desirable. Yeah. Right? I mean, like, it's I don't want to say it's easy, but it is easier to design, 8 homes that look exactly the same and just put them on a plot of land. It's fine. But there's not really a lot of architecture behind stuff like that, right? And it's all cost effective, right? Which is totally cool. But having a couple homes where it's just like uniquely designed, just like when you design for someone's business or someone's home, you're designing it specifically for them. Yeah. And residentially, it's very, very much more personal and to the heart than commercially. Yeah. Right. Commercial, that's your money maker. That's what you use to fund you know, your life and your lifestyle and what you want to do. Your home is where you relax, and that's where you're comfortable, and that's where you are, right? So it's very, very particular, as you'll know, to what everyone wants.
It's different, but and like that's what I love commercial space or designing commercial space because like you're thinking of what that potential client's experience is going to be, so you're trying to design that. But then you're right, when it's comfort of your home, it's very personal, like very, very particular. The color of the handles for the cabinets will very, very much set someone off. But at their office, it's fine, it's a cabinet. It's too functional. It's two very different outlooks for sure. So let's jump into, we heard that you are getting into podcasting as well.
Yes.
So we want to hear a little bit more who's involved in your project and more details of your new, like share new details of your project with us.
What kind of topics, or maybe like what's the overarching theme of the podcast?
Love the question, because there's a group of 5 of us. There's 2 from our office, so myself and another gentleman, and then there's 3 other gentlemen from the office that are actually right next to us, and they're mortgage brokers. So we've had a great relationship with them. Obviously, just through business, we'll send a couple people their way, and they'll always get people and send them our way, which is fantastic. We all play on the same soccer team, so we're all friends. It all kind of is a great environment. We all got great chemistry together. It's a great group of guys. I love these guys dearly, and so we've like, well, maybe we'll start something where we're not only talking about what we do for work, because it's very, very related. A lot of people will go to them, and especially with us getting into the residential world, a lot of people go to them, get pre-approved. Well, I'd love for them to go into some of our homes, right? And then at the same time, when people come to our homes, I'd love for them to go get a mortgage through them. So we're going to talk a little bit about that on the podcast. Soccer is going to be a big component for sure. So I don't know how much of a market there is for that in Edmonton.
I think it's a big market, the sports market.
It's growing. The sports market is huge. The soccer specific market is interesting, but it is growing. I mean, Alphonso Davies was in Edmonton, and now the guy's playing in Germany for
that's
Munich.
awesome.
So he's done a great job not only supporting soccer for Canadians, but for Edmontonians as well. So we're going to talk about a little bit of soccer, a little bit about real estate and mortgages, but then it's also going to be a spot where we go and we talk about whatever we want, whether it's our personal lives or whether what's going on in the news recently and stuff. So it's going to be 2 very strong dynamics in soccer and real estate, but then we're going to venture out into other things as well.
I like that.
A bunch of dudes shooting the shit.
Dudes shooting the shit. Exactly,
I love that.
I'll
be tuning in.
Maybe that's what we'll call it. We'll have to have you guys on when we get it up and running.
Would love to be part of it. So I guess we can, that kind of wraps up all the questions that we have. But before we end the podcast, is there any exciting news that you have, I guess, about your business, about your personal life that you'd like to share with everyone that's listening?
Well, yeah, I mean, I can dive into it for sure. In terms of business, there's a couple cool things that we have up and coming. Me and a group of guys, we started our own coffee company.
Cool.
We're going to distribute coffee beans. We're not going to open up our own coffee shop just yet, but we have a brand now. It's called Ambrosa Coffee. So we're getting all of our bags designed and distributing them to a couple coffee shops here in the city, and a couple coffee shops that are tenants of ours that are going to try it out and see how it goes for sure. That's pretty much kind of what we're doing as a group, and that's the same guys that are part of this podcast. Business wise, like I said, we got pretty much a lot of properties that are working on right now commercially, and some stuff residentially. Personally, I just got back from Europe, so I had a great time over in Europe.
That looked wonderful.
Oh, it was fantastic. I was waiting to do a trip like that for quite a few years, so we went to Oktoberfest in Munich, so we got to experience that, which is pretty cool.
Did you dress up?
I did dress up.
Oh,
nice. I wore lederhosen, and all the girls were wearing the drindles and stuff. So it was unbelievable, and these tents are just huge. So you kind of really get shocked by it, from what I remember, because I don't remember much. Then after that, flew to Croatia, saw Old Town Dubrovnik, which is gorgeous. One of my favorite places I've ever been, actually. And people are so nice. Then we flew to Monaco, checked out Monaco a little bit, and the F1 track is kind of a cool thing to walk over there. You got the Monte Carlo Casino, the Paris Hotel. It was also probably the most expensive place I've been in my life. So the wallet took a beating on that one. But then after that, we flew to Paris. It was Fashion Week in Paris, so it was a great time to be there. Amsterdam with, a big group of us, and then flew to London. Saw a soccer match. I saw Arsenal versus Tottenham, which the soccer fans will know is a pretty big game.
Wow.
So did that, and then I came back home. So it was a fantastic trip.
How long was your trip in Europe?
2.5 weeks. So
you did all that in 2.5 weeks?
It was not relaxing.
Oh my God.
It was not relaxing.
Did you sleep for 5 days when you got home?
Yeah. I'm still recovering from jet lag right now. But it was fantastic. Every time you go to Europe, it's not really a relaxing trip because there's always stuff you want to see and stuff you want to do, and the food's amazing, so you want to try just every restaurant you possibly can. But it was a lot of up and go and not really a lot of downtime. But that's okay. I had 2 years of downtime with COVID, so totally fine.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I loved it.
But I've seen you. You were everywhere this weekend.
Oh my gosh. I was in 3 different places at the same time. I was at the Fall Home Show at the Expo Center, paired up with Botanical Plant Boutique. That was great. And then I was also at Bountiful as every other weekend. And then I was also doing the Hello Pretty market. And we were at the Pendennis building, which was the first time they've ever hosted a market at the Pendennis building. Really beautiful heritage building. And then
so you were at all these 4 places in 2 days.
Yeah. 3.
That's more moving than when I was in Europe.
Yeah. Well, it was a lot. I had been trying to sleep every single day in the last couple days that I have. Yeah, so trying to catch up on sleep, but no, it's been good. And then we're planning for a workshop. I'm working with Ascendant Events. Kay Kusi is the one that owns Ascendant Events. She's great to work with. So we're planning to do some inner work meditation, and then that transfers into the external work of intentional floral building. So it'll be a great spiritual wellness workshop that I'm really excited to do. Yeah.
That is really awesome, and we will attach to get tickets onto our website.
Or
our social media.
Or you can find it probably in the description. I'll put it in the description. But that is on November 9th. So super excited for that. It'll be a first. Because I went into Pampas Gal, building Pampas Gal to, I guess, indirectly helping with spiritual wellness and just positive affirmations, sort of thing with Pampas Gal. So this kind of just aligns with the vision of the inner work, outer work sort of thing. Something else, I guess, personal. I'm going to New York this coming weekend.
Oh, wow. Just traveling.
Yeah, I'm just trying to take advantage. I've been same thing for the last 2 years. It's just been head down, trying to focus on the business, and so I just need to do something for myself. So New York is just for myself, and just going to enjoy New York. It's one of my favorite cities. So we're just gonna go eat and party and have fun and enjoy.
Love that.
Work hard, play hard.
Yeah.
You need to.
Right? Yeah. How about yourself? Anything new that's happening?
So I've been hiding out and teaching. So we're almost mid through a semester. I teach. It's kind of cool that you're touching on traveling, because I teach art history with art architecture history, and so I want to make a goal to visit all 7 wonders of the world. Yeah, so I'm I teach this. I want to be here. I want to experience these structures that were built 200,000 years ago. It's just amazing how they are still withhold. I know they are in exhibits and museums and they are constantly maintained, but just being able to go there and visit it, right? So that's, and Galee.
I'm going with you.
She's going to be my travel buddy. I was just recently on site today of one of our projects that we're working on, Island Dog, and paint should be coming in millwork, so it's moving in the next month. It should be opening up. She is going to be having a grand opening. I will release that as soon as we know. I'm super
so
excited. Oh my gosh.
Long time coming.
Yes, I'm so pumped. It's going to be a pet store that no one has seen here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, you know what, I would even say traveling has a lot to do with every industry.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because our industries are different, but our industries are very aligned in the same sense where that's where you kind of get a lot of passion from, right? You get a lot of different ideas, right? And what's going on in different places around the world. So I think it's huge, especially for the design aspect and everything that you're selling and marketing, right? Like, and it's huge for us because, well, I got to know what I'm going to design the next building for, and I'll take inspiration from different places around the world, right?
I always so I'm teaching Japanese architecture right now, and ancient Japanese architecture is so beautiful. They're very nature orientated, and they want to bring the nature in. They're very streamlined, modern, clean, and a lot of our modern architects like Frank Lloyd Wright and Van der Rohe in Chicago literally went to Japan, studied their architecture and brought it to Chicago, and that's why their architecture is so. Have you been to Chicago?
I've never actually been to Chicago.
Chicago's buildings are very beautiful. Like, those are the top favorite architects of mine. So, but when you experience that, like, their influence is from Japan. So I'm giving you guys a listen.
I love it.
That's awesome though, and that's exactly like my next trip I'm going is Japan. 100%. That's always been a bucket list thing of mine. Probably going to try to book it this coming up year. But my grandfather is an architect still to this day, and he did a ton of work in China. And he would go to China and go to Shanghai, and like a lot of his buildings are still up there, and like they're one of the talked about buildings in Shanghai. So but he brings that architecture back to Canada, and people utilize that. And that's what we love. Yeah. Right? You take the best things from different places around the world, you combine it in a different human imagination and make art. Yeah. Right?
I love that.
I should go book a flight right now.
Yes.
Don't tempt me.
You literally just got back.
This group is dangerous. Traveling.
Very, yes.
So let's end our podcast with our affirmation. Galee, you go first.
Mine's gonna be similar to last week, that I am capable of big growth and big dreams, and just aspiring to really to anything that I can dream up of. I think that oftentimes that, we dream of big visions, and sometimes life kind of takes the best of us, and we might start to downsize our dream because of time or limitations or resistance. And so I think just remembering that, like, I am fully capable of anything I dream up of, and I'm going to take it on and, make it happen.
Love that.
So my affirmation is I want to try to twist in inspiration. So I want to be inspired. So I'm going to try to take time to get more inspired by nature, traveling. I want to by others. I know being around other entrepreneurs or business, you get inspired here. So just trying to take that time to get inspired. Yeah.
Well, both amazing ones. I'm going to follow that up. You know what's so funny is I saw a quote actually last week that stuck with me. And it was, comparison is the thief of joy. And it's one thing that I've been saying to myself over and over again, and I started to just love it, because we all go around and we work so hard to try to accomplish a lot of things in our life, whether it's the bigger home or the nicer car or the vacation that we've never done or stuff like that, because you see other people doing that. So the second that you start to compare yourself and say, I want a nicer suit, or like I said, a nicer car, that's stealing the joy from your current life. So never ever compare yourself. And it's one thing that I really want to practice more, is that it's fine if you don't have the biggest bank account, the nicest home, the nicest car, nicest watch, nicest clothes. It's fine, because if you're happy in what you have right now, it's the best thing you'll ever have.
That's true happiness.
It is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Being mindful of the present.
Exactly.
Yes. I love that. So thank you, Gio, for being a part of this podcast
Thanks
and
for
sharing so much valuable information. I feel like I'm gonna need to re-listen to this podcast just to
for
take
ourselves.
Well, I'm happy to be here. I really appreciate you both inviting me and allowing me to take up some of your time to just kind of share a little bit.
Yeah. Next week, we're going to have Grace from Fresh Space by Grace hanging out with us for the next podcast. And she's going to be sharing information on taking care of plants and just her business and how plants have the abilities to brighten up a space.
Yeah.
Probably the psychology behind it and the science behind it.
We're also going to touch on managing our time as an entrepreneur.
That's huge.
Yeah. I know we all struggle with that.
Yes, we do.
So thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you next episode. Please subscribe.
And if you have any golden nuggets that you took away from this podcast, please feel free to send us a message or comment on any of our social media posts. We always love hearing feedback from you guys, and it keeps us going. Thank you.